This video is a short history of the desire to find and arrange landscapes for human use and enjoyment. These aims can be glimpsed in cave paintings from 20 and 30,000 years ago. Rough cave walls seem to be landscapes. Wild animals seem to be hunted and painted for functional, aesthetic and spiritual reasons. You could call these intentions Vitruvian, and they're found in the early records of settlements. The archaeological remains of the earliest cities, humanized landscapes and gardens, date from about 10,000 years ago, when, presumably, sites for settlements and ceremonies were chosen on the basis of landscape assessments. Landscape architecture became an organized profession in the 19th century and an international profession in the 20th century. A version of this video was published on YouTube in 2019 as The Story of Landscape Architecture. It's not a history of named designers or of design styles, but you can find an outline of these stories in two sibling videos. One is a short history of Western landscape architecture as an art of design on the land. The approach is art historical, and it uses style diagrams to summarize the history of design gardens and their influence on the design of cities and landscapes. The other is a video about 20 of the great people in the history of landscape architecture, 10 from the East and 10 from the West. The lists include kings, queens, emperors, religious leaders, and the trained professional designers who are now carrying the art forwards. Most of the examples are gardens, which I think of in Vitruvian terms: uses, functions, and art. There are links to these videos at the end of this video, and there are answers to other questions in the Q&A section of the landscapearchitecture.org.uk website. The questions are answered in 1 or 2 sentences, supplemented by links to other videos. I enjoyed making them, and I hope you enjoy watching them. I've been a landscape architect for 50 years, and my love of the art is undiminished. In launching a set of podcasts, my plan is to take an overview of urban design, garden design, and landscape design, their history, theory, position, and prospects. Let's start with landscape architecture. It's a great art, but outside the profession, it's not well understood and needs a better story to explain where we came from, where we are, and where we're going. Here's an outline of my version of the story. Once upon a time, all our ancestors were nomads. They had neither houses nor gardens, but they had a keen understanding of landscapes. They knew where to hunt, where to gather, and where to hide. The first buildings they made were tombs and temples. They needed to keep moving to find food, so they couldn't build settlements. But in the landscapes through which they roamed, certain places became significant. Stonehenge in southern England is a great example. There's evidence of the site having been in use 10,000 years ago, and the first stone circle dates from 5,000 years ago. It was a place where people gathered on ceremonial occasions, including cremations and burials. The beliefs of the time, described as animist, centered on features in the landscape, including objects, animals, and places associated with spiritual qualities and unseen powers. This included hilltops, riversides, forest edges, and crossings. It's probable that these landscapes were culturally significant long before they became sites for building temples. Göbekli Tepe, a hill in the south of Turkey, is thought to have the world's oldest surviving temples, begun about 12,000 years ago. They're inside mounds on top of a hill. From the hill, there are expansive views in every direction. The land to the south is now a rich agricultural plain. Göbekli Tepe isn't a work of architecture because it wasn't built for human habitation, but it is a work of landscape architecture. The world's oldest literary work, the Epic of Gilgamesh, contains what reads as an account of landscape architectural composition. It's a story about a Mesopotamian king who lived about 4,000 years ago. The reader is invited to go up on the wall of Uruk and walk around, examine its foundation, inspect its brickwork thoroughly. Did not the seven sages themselves lay out its plans? 1 league city, 1 league palm gardens, 1 league lowlands. The open area of the Ishtar temple, 3 leagues. And the open area of Uruk the wall encloses. A league was about 2,500 metres. Uruk, which may have given its name to Iraq, was one of the earliest cities. At later dates, the Egyptians, Greeks, Romans and North Europeans learned from West Asia how to make cities with palace gardens and temple gardens. These cities became centres for civilization. The words civilization and city derive from the Latin root civitas, meaning a community which had learned how to build cities and live in cities and enjoy what we call the arts. Cities and gardens probably developed in several parts of the world, simultaneously but independently, as did agriculture. There were surely currents of influence, but I won't try to deal with them in this podcast. In Europe, the many arts involved in making cities, gardens and landscapes declined and fell when the Roman Empire declined and fell. But they were revived during the Renaissance and spread to Northern Europe, the Americas and elsewhere. For the creation of public goods, municipal authorities took over the leadership role from princes and bishops. This fostered the development of specialised professions, including surveyors, engineers, architects and landscape architects. The English term landscape architect first appeared in the title of a book published in 1828. It was then used by an English garden designer, William Andrews Nesfield, and by an American gardening author and designer, Andrew Jackson Downing. Jackson much admired John Claudius Loudon, who'd used the term landscape architect, but not with its present meaning. Frederick Law Olmsted was the man who gave landscape architect a fresh meaning, and the modern meaning. In the 1860s, he used the word for the work of creating a really great public good, Central Park in New York City. The fame of this project, and of the emerald necklace of parks and greenways he planned for Boston, led to the creation of what is now a worldwide profession. The landscape profession specialises in the planning and design of municipal public goods, including greenways, parks and other public open spaces. They're great projects, but specialising in them led to landscape architects being thought of primarily as green space people. Even today, the Encyclopaedia Britannica definition of landscape architecture begins by saying that landscape architecture is the development and decorative planting of gardens, yards, grounds, parks, and other planned green outdoor spaces. This is a limited and restricted view. It makes no mention of urban design, city planning, forestry, ecological planning, hydrological planning, or garden design. Sir Geoffrey Jellicoe, who founded the International Federation of Landscape Architects in Cambridge in 1948, had a broader view. Both a historian and an imaginative designer, Jellicoe exemplifies Winston Churchill's belief that the farther backward you can look, the farther forward you can see. Jellicoe wrote that the world is moving into a phase when landscape design may well be recognised as the most comprehensive of the arts. Man creates around him an environment that is a projection into nature of his abstract ideas. It is only in the present century that the collective landscape has emerged as a social necessity. We are promoting a landscape art on a scale never conceived of in history. My own definition of this art is that landscape architects compose buildings and pavings with landform, water, and vegetation to create places which satisfy the three Vitruvian objectives. In classical Latin, the three objectives were utilitas, firmitas, and venustas. Henry Wotton translated them into English as commodity, firmness, and delight. They derive from the ancient world and have guided all the design professions since then. For their use by landscape architects, Ian Thompson has suggested rendering them as ecology, community, and delight. They are design objectives for good outdoor space. It should be useful, beautiful, and sustainable. Well, thanks for listening. That's my outline of the story of landscape architecture. If interested, you can find more of it on the gardenvisit.com and Landscape Architecture YouTube channels. Or you can subscribe to hear future podcasts about designing cities and landscapes.